History is full of epic battles and heroic tales, but some events are so bizarre they sound like fiction. Today, we're uncovering 5 of the strangest moments in history, from a war started over a severed ear to a pope who was put on trial after his death. Trust me, you'll be talking about these stories for days. Let's kick things off with one of the most absurd reasons for a war. It all started in 1731 when a British merchant named Robert Jenkins was intercepted by Spanish coast guards while sailing near the Caribbean. Jenkins claimed that during the raid, the Spaniards tied him up and cut off his ear as punishment for smuggling. Now here's the kicker. Jenkins kept his severed ear in a jar of alcohol. Years later, he presented the ear to the British Parliament as proof of Spanish brutality. "Gentlemen," he supposedly said, "this is what the Spaniards did to me." His ear became a rallying cry, and in 1739, Britain declared war on Spain. This bizarre conflict, known as the War of Jenkins' Ear, lasted 8 years. But here's the twist. Jenkins himself disappeared from the story soon after, and his ear was largely forgotten. Fun fact, by the end of the war, most people didn't even remember Jenkins, but his ear had already gone down in history. Napoleon Bonaparte, legendary emperor, military genius, and victim of a rabbit army. Sounds ridiculous, right? But it's true. After one of his successful military campaigns, Napoleon's men decided to celebrate with a rabbit hunt. They gathered hundreds of rabbits and released them into a field, expecting them to scatter so Napoleon and his party could hunt them down. But there was one problem. The rabbits weren't wild. They were tame. To these rabbits, Napoleon wasn't a hunter. He was a food dispenser. Instead of running away, the rabbits charged straight at Napoleon and his men, swarming them from all sides. Imagine the mighty emperor scrambling to escape a mob of fluffy invaders. The great conqueror of Europe met his match in bunnies. It's a reminder that sometimes even the strongest leaders are no match for nature's quirks. Medieval Europe was no stranger to bizarre power struggles, but the Cadaver Synod takes the cake. In 897 AD, Pope Stephen VI had a vendetta against his predecessor, Pope Formosus. But Formosus had already been dead for months. Did that stop Stephen? Not at all. He had Formosus's body dug up, dressed in papal robes, and placed on trial in front of a full church council. Imagine the scene. A lifeless corpse propped up on a throne with a deacon acting as its defense lawyer. Stephen accused Formosus of breaking church law, and unsurprisingly, the dead pope was found guilty. His body was stripped of its robes, his papal acts were annulled, and his corpse was thrown into the Tiber River. The trial, known as the Cadaver Synod, became infamous as one of the most macabre moments in church history. It also highlighted the extreme political rivalries of the time, where even death wasn't enough to escape your enemies. Now let's jump forward to the Cold War, a time when espionage and secrecy were everything. In 1960, American pilot Francis Gary Powers was flying a U-2 spy plane over Soviet territory on a top-secret mission. His plane was designed to fly so high that it would be out of reach of Soviet defenses. But on May 1st, disaster struck. The Soviets managed to shoot down the plane, and Powers was captured. Powers had a self-destructing briefcase filled with classified documents and a cyanide pill to avoid capture. But here's the twist. The briefcase malfunctioned, and Powers chose not to use the cyanide pill. The Soviets recovered the documents and paraded Powers as proof of U.S. espionage. This incident became a major scandal and escalated tensions between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. It also forced both nations to rethink their strategy, bringing the world closer to the brink of nuclear war. And finally, let's talk about the day a whale explosion rocked Oregon. In 1970, a 45-foot sperm whale washed up on a beach, and local officials were stuck with the problem of how to dispose of it. Their solution? Dynamite. The idea was to blow the whale into small pieces so scavengers could clean up the rest. But things went horribly wrong. When the dynamite went off, huge chunks of whale flew into the air, ending on bystanders and smashing a car parked hundreds of feet away. The explosion caused so much chaos that the remaining whale carcass still had to be buried later. The exploding whale incident became a cautionary tale for anyone dealing with large animals. Or dynamite. From rabbit invasions to exploding whales, history truly is stranger than fiction. Which story blew your mind the most? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey through history's weirdest moments, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next.